Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where every day we explore a different technology and how it's impacting our business, industries, or indeed our lives. And we also look to bust a few myths along the way. And with an increasing number of enterprises now looking to blockchain technology for business applications, there is an argument that the very nature of decentralization is being called into question. And the recent Senate hearings on Facebook's Libra highlight that any project whose value can be distorted by a central authority, as is the case with Libra's consortium of just 27 nodes, it cannot be classified as truly decentralized. Or can it? And while certain projects reject decentralization in favour of business benefits, others remain focused on delivering on the original promise of blockchain technology. And it's a fascinating debate. And AVA Labs is one such project that is focused on developing a platform of platforms for blockchain applications, all with the bold goal of challenging established players such as the likes of Ethereum. But I don't want to reveal too many spoilers, so let's get the debate underway and let me beam your ears all the way to New York City so we can sneak you into a conversation with myself and the co-founder of AVA Labs. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little more about who you are and what you do?
Certainly. As of recently, I was a PhD student at Cornell, working in computer science and doing research in cryptocurrencies, and then started off a company called AVA Labs, which we're currently opening up and expanding pretty aggressively out here in New York City. We are a fintech company that bridges into cryptocurrencies, and we're building a pretty interesting platform, and that's what I'm here for.
Fantastic. Now, we've discussed many of the blockchain and crypto debates on this daily tech podcast, but one thing that I'm increasingly seeing is the number of enterprises looking to blockchain for business applications. But then that got me thinking, by that, the very nature of decentralization is being called into question. So I've got to ask, where do you stand on this topical debate at the moment?
That's a good question. It brings up some existential crises questions, I understand. So that's totally a fair point. What we are seeing is that there is a need to change a few of the operational mechanisms that enterprise currently are going with in terms of listing, creating, and trading assets. So that's a big open question on current financial market and the enterprise. So of course those guys are in need of really changing their entire tech stack. But of course decentralization brings up many more value adds than just changing the current tech stack of enterprise. So I would probably say it's not really a big issue. These crypto networks, they're much more than just decentralized networks. They're really supposed to change the way we store, the way we trade money and assets. And this goes, both on the fully decentralized setting, where we have fully collateralized assets in these new interesting markets that are developing, like DeFi applications on Ethereum. But there's a big need to also really disrupt the enterprise world. So this is actually really a great time to be working in the space, because you can really revolutionize finance, both fully decentralized applications, but also centralized ones.
And also, for many people listening as well, the recent Senate hearings on Facebook's Libra highlight that any project whose value can be distorted by a central authority. And I also read that with Libra's consortium consisting of just 27 nodes, it cannot actually be classified as truly decentralized. Is that a sentiment that you would agree with?
I would have to say so. I love the Facebook guys. We have a close relationship with them, and they're really trying to do something important. But ultimately, I think even Calibra and so on, they've been quite surprised at the backlash that they've gotten from their relationship to Facebook. It's clear that the way that they have gone about deploying their system, which is an important one, is probably not the right one. And having such close ties to a corporation as strong and as big and as powerful as Facebook certainly doesn't help their case. It's truly going to be very hard to move away the narrative from what it currently is to a fully decentralized one. And the fact that it's only 27 validators, that's not really decentralized exactly as you said. That's a small group chat. Much worse the case of the fact that this is really all being managed by Facebook, which makes it really hard to really have a say in the system. So I would, it's an important thing that they're doing, but the way they've gone about it is certainly troublesome right now.
So some certain projects reject decentralization in favor of business benefits. I get that, while others remain focused on delivering on the original promise of blockchain technology. And I guess my earlier questions were actually to set the scene for listeners, because AVA Labs is one such project that is focused on developing a platform of platforms for blockchain. So can you expand on this and tell listeners a little bit more about your work, just for anyone that's hearing about you guys for the very first time?
Absolutely. So what we started off with initially, based on our research at Cornell, was the desire to really change the tech stack on how we build decentralized applications, how we build blockchains. But as we've grown, we are product people, we're pragmatic people. We want to really offer something that has real value proposition. And it's not just about creating a new technology stack that is faster, more scalable than current technology stacks. It's really about introducing true value proposition to the finance sector. So what we're doing at AVA Labs is that what we have identified really is a need to increase efficiencies and decrease frictions to the issuance and creation of assets. So there is a huge liquidity and reach problem currently in global financial markets. There is a large amount of capital sitting idle, unable to be deployed. Let me give you an example. So the Norwegian oil fund has $1.3 trillion under management. And if they were to deploy that capital across all investable assets in the United States, across really everything, real estate, equities, and so on, that amount of capital is so large, it will single-handedly rise up the entire markets. So a lot of smart people are being paid a lot of money to figure out new ways to create markets, to create new assets, and increase the liquidity and reach of these assets. So we're coming at it from the software eats the world perspective. We're coming at it by saying that, look, we have a product that potentially can exactly solve that. We have a network which allows anybody really to come in and launch this notion of a sub-network. And that's why we are a platform of platforms. And each one of these sub-networks itself is a platform which can be represented abstractly, or it can be thought of as a market, for example. I can have a sub-network which is launched. It can be, for example, representative of U.S. equities. And the really nice thing about it is that the way we've built our technology is that compliance is sort of baked into the protocol. You can have networks that are fully compliant, that have these certificates, which is really important for example, trading equities in the United States. Like, this is a very important feature that you really need compliance here. But of course, we're also a decentralized network. So you can launch within the same universal network that AVA offers. You can also launch sub-networks that are fully decentralized, that have, for example, assets that are deployed in a fully collateralized way, running through a very large set of validators. They could put, for example, you can bring in the entire Ethereum virtual machine or the entire Ethereum network as a sub-network on AVA. In the meanwhile, you can also digitize the entire CBOE or the entire NASDAQ market. So really what we want to do is increase the ability for anybody to launch new markets and assets within those markets, so that people can trade and so on in a fully compliant manner baked into the protocol.
And when I was researching you before you came on today, I quickly learned that your mission was to build a payments, rail and computation engine based on the breakthrough Avalanche family of consensus protocols. Now, for some listeners out there outside of the blockchain community, that'll be a little bit of a mouthful for them. So can I just ask that you tell me a little bit more about that mission?
Absolutely. So let me start off maybe by backtracking a little bit into what got us started, which was, as I mentioned and alluded to before, recreating the tech stack from the ground up. So there have been only about three major families of consensus protocols. And for those that aren't fully aware, consensus is the underlying mechanism by which we reach agreement in this set of distributed participants. It's really what's necessary in order for us to build this global ledger of accounts and transactions. So there have been three major families. We've had classical consensus protocols, by which we've known for decades, since the 70s really, and a lot of people have won Turing Awards, the Nobel Prize equivalent in computer science for it. And the second family is the Bitcoin Nakamoto longest chain style consensus family. And this is what Satoshi Nakamoto introduced in 2008. And then there's, of course, a third family, as I alluded to, which is the Avalanche family. It's a fundamentally new, different type of consensus protocol. It has the best properties of both classical and Nakamoto consensus. So it's very scalable, very robust, yet it can still perform at the kinds of levels that you really need in order to build a real-time financial ecosystem. So Visa level performance, sub-second finality, as well as thousands and thousands of transactions per second. So what we have here at the base layer is a consensus protocol that can scale to thousands of participants. It can be really decentralized, unable to be manipulated by any single entity. And at the base layer, it can serve as a global payments rail. So it can really bring in accounts for anybody and have anybody in real time transact with anybody else via the platform without really being bottlenecked by the 3 transactions per second bottleneck that Bitcoin has. And as far as computation goes, well, it's very simple. We have this notion of platforms on top. So you can, for example, launch, as I said, the entire Ethereum virtual machine as a subnetwork within AVA. And that is a computations rail. So any arbitrary smart contracts can be launched there. Any arbitrary applications can be executed on these platforms.
And of course, it wouldn't be a blockchain or crypto podcast if we didn't explore roadmaps and things like that. So I've got to ask, what stage of this journey are you at right now? And especially, and how long is it going to take you to get where you need to be?
That's a great question. So we like to deliver very quickly. We closed our first round of funding as a company just in February, and we released a private testnet in May. And we're getting ready to release our public testnet in just about a month or so. So we want to go to market really quickly, but it's not just about building the platform for us. We subscribe to the fat stack thesis, which is we're going to build this platform, launch, go to mainnet very quickly, and then immediately after that, work very hard to build applications and verticals on top. So we're going to build new markets and various different applications, and we're really going to work hard to build an ecosystem here, because ultimately, what we're trying to build in one sentence is the Amazon.com of markets and assets. And in order to get there, you really need to execute properly. To where Amazon got today was through a lot of execution, a lot of great execution. So it's going to be just as tough for us, but we're going to move fast, and hopefully we get there.
And what is your biggest challenge at the moment? Is it adoption, or is that getting easier?
Adoption is a problem for everybody, I would say. Yeah. Certainly, I think the biggest problem down the road is going to be to bootstrap network effects. A big thing that Ethereum has is not just many years on top of us in terms of development of the technology, but also in terms of development of the community. So they have a lot of people deploying, locking up ETH, creating new DeFi applications, and so on. So bootstrapping network effects is a major, major hurdle. But we have internal strategies that I think are going to pan out pretty successfully. And so hopefully, as soon as we deploy our platform, we go live, we want to be focusing immediately on that big hurdle.
And on the subject of cryptocurrency, we often see in headlines at the moment around Bitcoin are being referred to as a storage of wealth and even as an alternative to gold. Do you think it's much too soon for that to be realistic, or where do you stand on that?
So it's a great question. So I'm a little bit contrarian on this. While I do see potentially that Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency could be used as a hedge It's not clear there's any data to support this narrative right now. So I've actually done some internal research on this within the team here, and we haven't really seen any data to back up that Bitcoin is in fact a hedge like gold is. Gold has very simple properties, and has been known, and these properties have been known, tried and true for millennia. It's going to be hard for people to really say that Bitcoin is exactly like digital gold, because its properties have not been proven exactly like gold's properties. I mean, it's only been live for 10 years, and it really, it has a long way to go. But certainly I do see that we will move potentially to more digital-based hedging, and Bitcoin could be exactly one of them.
So what's next for you guys? Is there anything else you can share with us today? Obviously, you sound incredibly busy with the launch of the mainnet, and you're working on those deliverables and to get them out there as quickly as possible. But is there anything else that you can share with us today?
Certainly. So we are, very aggressively expanding. We moved to New York City because we wanted to get the best we can possibly get. We are constantly talking to people down on Wall Street to really understand their needs and really build products that they want. So, the best thing I can share right now is that we're growing very quickly, and, stay tuned for the next few months. I think it's going to be exciting.
Excellent. And I'm curious, from those conversations with people on Wall Street, are they less resistant to change now? Are they beginning to embrace this technology?
I would say the people on Wall Street, look, they've always been ultimately about their, if you can solve problems. There are people that have real problems in their work days, and they want solutions to these real problems. It's not been the case that crypto at any point until now has actually solved their problems. But once somebody goes there, understands their troubles, and can actually offer solutions to these troubles, like exactly what I said, reach and liquidity of these markets, that's a big value proposition, and they're super open to these kinds of new technologies. They're very much open to adopting them.
Excellent. Well, for anyone listening that would like to find out more information and stay up to speed with those announcements around the mainnet release and anything else, really, what's the best way of finding you guys online, or even talking with your community? Can you just point them in the direction of how to do that?
Absolutely. The best place would probably be Twitter. We have our official page at AVA Labs official. You can also follow me on Twitter at Kevin Sekniqi.
Well, hearing you reflecting on talking about the conversations with Wall Street there, it almost gave me flashbacks from my IT past, because traditionally I've seen business units going out and just looking for the next big thing, the shiny tech solution, but without looking for the actual, or understanding what the actual problem is. And I think that it's got so many parallels with what's going on in blockchain at the moment. There's a lot of people going after the next big solution, but like you say, it's actually sitting down with people, understanding the problem, and then creating a solution to solve that problem first, rather than going to the tech first. I think that's the secret, and you seem to be doing just that. So I wish you the best of luck for the future. I'd love to get you back on in a few months after the release of that mainnet and see how things are going. But a big thank you for coming on and joining me today.
Thank you. This was a pleasure.
What a great guy, and a fascinating conversation. I think it's worth highlighting that prior to his time at AVA Labs, Kevin was a PhD candidate in computer science at Cornell University, conducting research in distributed systems, cryptography, security, and economics. And the reason I say that is because he previously did research and software engineering at prominent organisations, including Microsoft and NASA, to name but a few. And he also pre-funded an AI company focused on hyperparameter optimization. So to say he knows what he's talking about is somewhat of an understatement. The fact that AVA opens up this whole new level of decentralization for proof-of-stake protocols, and actually bringing them in line with the level of decentralization offered by Bitcoin, is incredibly exciting. But I'm conscious that some of you listening inside the blockchain and crypto community will know much more about this topic than myself. And that's a good thing, because I want you to come on here and share your insights with the listeners too. And whether that be a comment by just sending me a quick email on techblogwriter@outlook.com, or tweeting me at Neil C. Hughes, or even coming on this show too, and I'll give you a virtual microphone and we can carry on that conversation. The options are endless. Well, nearly endless, but we can carry on that conversation and hopefully learn from each other. So let me know your thoughts about today's conversation, about the future mainnet release over at AVA Labs, and indeed anything else. If not, don't worry, I'll be back in your earballs tomorrow morning, bright and early, where we'll cover another topic of how technology is transforming a business or entire industry, and maybe bust a few myths along the way. So I'll see you then. So a big thank you for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.